every once in a while, I end up playing a game of a certain type. Something that is just... how do I describe this? A world confined within a generally small playable space, yet still feeling large and brimming with life at the same time. Not exactly open world, but still managing to capture that feeling of exploring a city, a jungle, or a beach through the abstracted, tightly crafted structure of what is ultimately a more linear experience, with the repeated trekking through areas building up a familiarity in those spaces akin to that of a home, all congregating in a way that is, yeah, let's go with chill as adjective of the week. I like chill game worlds, which is something that, importantly, does not include most Metroidvania games that you're probably thinking of right now, or a search action game if you want to be normal. As much of those games overlap with the things I've described, that feeling of chill goes a lot deeper than simply being a game within that genre. Most of those don't really hit the mark, to be honest. So I'm going to talk about some games that give off that idiosyncratic feeling. Oh, mother. You might be wondering, why Earthbound Beginnings out of the trilogy when Earthbound and Mother 3 are right there? That's a good question. Mainly cause neither of those games I've played much in a while, but Beginnings on the other hand, well, of course I played through it to the end, and pertinently, very recently as well. So yes, I'm the Mother fan who's only ever beaten Earthbound Beginnings. Man, I really like the towns in this. My personal favorite's gotta be Snowman, not because of some pre-existing bias regarding snow, though that absolutely plays a part, but mainly the sheer aura of the place. The white of the snow mixed in with the yellow of the trees, the small, nearly identical houses, and the Nintendo of America approved Not a Church to the Far East, all accompanied with the quaint background music echoing throughout the whole area. The track even does the little Chrono Trigger riff. What more could you ask for? Well, I'd like if I wasn't constantly getting my ass kicked by wolves and polar bears and Bigfoot. Nintendo and friends aren't even safe from cryptids. That's how ruthless this game is. Actually, scratch that. You aren't even safe from the goddamn townsfolk, because talking to some of them will give you a cold, which acts like poison. You really aren't safe from anything in this game. Kind of raw, though. Another really chill town in Beginnings I like is Marysville, which sadly has nothing to do with Christmas. It was actually renamed from Thanksgiving in the English localization, and is about as far away from Snowman distance-wise a town in this game can get. Okay, maybe Earthbound Beginnings map isn't exactly small, but it still feels small from how you traverse around it, personally speaking. Marysville personally stands out to me because of the cliffs. I just really like the look of mountainous regions in the Mother series, the almost fractal-like pattern they carry. And after so much of the game up to this point just being flat grass with some forested parts, it's really refreshing to see areas with quite literally more depth to them. Very cozy. The school is also really cool, and probably the more notable part of the town compared to some cliff faces. It's really fun to barge in and converse with the NPCs in a way that is very Earthbound-inspired RPG core. Super Mario Bros. 7? Sure, why not? Some kid that's coughing? Oh god damn it, I contracted a cold again. No way I'm paying for some expensive hospital visit in the fictional land of America. I've got other chill game worlds to discuss. You really thought I could go one video without talking about the Blue Man? Indisputably, the worst decision they ever made for a Sonic game was cutting the adventure fields for SA2. I do not care about any concerns regarding pacing. I want some chill areas on the side to look around and hang out in, which is exactly what Sonic Adventure 1 serves. All the adventure fields are really chill. I just like going around places like Station Square or the Mystic Ruins, taking the atmosphere in. Even with Sonic and friends moving at the very same blistering pace as in the actual stages, making it a little hellish to control, so typical Dreamcast jank. There's NPCs to talk to, and as the narrative of each character's story progresses, so do the stories of those NPCs, as corny as that might sound. Whether it be someone complaining they can't get on the train because of an ongoing strike from workers, yes really, or even a little romantic subplot between two characters, Sonic Adventure 1's got a surprising amount of world building in its hub worlds. Even the adventure fields themselves change as you get further into the story, sometimes being as minor as a time of day change, or as major as the egg fleet crashing straight into the fucking ocean. Though, admittedly, that's pretty much just an aesthetical change. I also really like the power-ups you collect outside of the stages, like the crystal ring in this nightmarish gameplay utilitarian piece of architecture. Even when the power-ups in question aren't necessarily the most useful, they're simply fun to obtain with their glowy aura and all that. Hell, there are even some optional ones if you explore around enough, like the aforementioned crystal ring, so there's a legitimate gameplay benefit to arbitrarily wandering the hubs. Which, I mean, you're kinda already doing if you're trying to progress to some degree, but my point still stands. I was recently told by an anonymous tipper that if I don't bring up how surreal and cool the Chow Gardens are, I might vanish. So Sonic Adventure 1 Chow Gardens, am I right? They're a vibe, as one might say. I think my favorite is either the one in Station Square or the one in the Egg Carrier, or I guess on an island you get teleported to from there. They're chill. They tap into that Knights-like environmental design, especially in the Chow races, which is quite fitting because something, a life, something, whatever. Also, as someone more used to Sonic Adventure 2, seeing the base Chow form here with green bits instead of yellow messes with me so hard. I mean, they're yellow in the official artwork for the game, so I don't know. Anyways, let's move on to another game. It's Zelda, It's Awakening, It's of. Fuck, I don't know where I'm going with this. But just for sake of clarification, there is no Zelda in this game. She is briefly mentioned at the start, to fill the quota, of course. Link's Awakening's overworld is pretty chill. Though that's kind of where the game's A Link to the Past roots shine through the most, because it's just the Link to the Past map condensed down, some stuff moved around, so it's actually cooler now. The one notable addition is the beachside area by the southwest, Taranbo Shores, but the more I think about it, the more I think this might be my favorite area in the game. Something about Game Boy beaches give off a unique feeling. They always got the sound of waves crashing ashore in the form of a noise generator, fading in and out on loop with a bit of aliasing. I like it. Though I think Mysterious Forest barely edges it out with the music and the murky color palette in the DX version. Wait, it's called Mysterious Forest? Hold on a second. Oh. Huh. Part of me thought it was straight up gonna be the same as its Link to the Past counterpart, and it was only changed for the English translation. But no, it's a pretty close match. That might have been a complete waste of my time, actually. Which seems about on par for the rest of the game. Epic Dunk. Okay, to be fair, I don't think Link's Awakening is entirely unenjoyable, but the game does a frankly terrible job at leading you towards the next point of progression. There is an in-game hint system you can use, but the hint guy Ulrira mentions items that are part of the game's mandatory trading sequence. Without the context, you may not have the item to trade for the item he mentioned, so you wander aimlessly around the map trying to advance the trading sequence, and it's a whole goddamn mess. Maybe I was just playing wrong and I should have gone to this or that area before this point in the game, but regardless of any of that, this type of stuff is just not fun when you're playing for the first time. And that's not even getting into times like traveling down a long river only to find a dead end, so you have to go all the way back where you came. Or bashing dungeon walls with your sword because they decided it would be funny if not all bomb holes were marked, and more. Link's Awakening is a tough game to like, but damn it, that won't stop me from appreciating it. I love the whole premise of the game being in a dream island, watching the truth slowly unravel and what waking the windfish means for the island, and the inhabitants within. It's an interesting place to take a Zelda game, especially this early on in the series, and as contradictory as this might sound, I love the world too, in spite of its gameplay-centric problems. It can be enjoyable to explore. The villages are really charming, and Marin, she's a real one, what can I say? Above all else, my investment in this world is what kept me going through the end, which is ironic considering, you know. But I don't know, it was neat. Maybe the Nintendo Switch remake addresses some of my issues with the original, or maybe it doesn't. I haven't played it, so I wouldn't know. It'd be great if there was a game like Link's Awakening, but a bit less clunky in the gameplay department. Okay, I need to admit something. This is not a video about small chill worlds in games. This has actually been a thinly veiled ruse to talk about a game called The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls, or Kairu no Tame ni Kane wa Naru, if you want to be a nerd about it. Yes, this is that one game with the Did You Know Gaming video about it, but it absolutely deserves more credit than having been the progenitor of some stuff in Link's Awakening. So on the surface, it kind of seems like a generic high fantasy RPG kind of thing. A prince, whom I got to name something very fitting and mature, is training against the Prince of Custard Kingdom, Richard, someone who has been as much a friend as a rival since the two were born, the Sonic to your shadow, if you will. But as usual, Richard manages to defeat his counterpart for the 56th time, not even taking a single blow. Again, nothing too out of the ordinary so far, until a couple moments later. Damn. That's entirely irrelevant to what's happening. Oh god, what is happening? Well, regardless of that, you play the role of the prince you named at the start. The other prince, Richard, has set sail with his henchmen for the kingdom of Milfui to the palace of Fuck Off or whatever the hell, and our protagonist decides to follow in his lead. The overarching story isn't the most interesting part, so let's get into the thing that really hooked me into this old-ass Game Boy game, that being the world. You got a little Zelda in the mix, of course, little Ys, probably a little Dragon Slayer / Xanadu if we're being honest, but that's kind of a given. It's even got the screen-by-screen scrolling from the former two. And because of that, each room needs to be condensed into the small screen of the Game Boy, so the end result is a super efficient use of space that makes each area feel meaningful to go through. Sure, it's not realistic to go from a snowy biome to a desert biome through a short cave, but it has more concrete placeness that can't really be captured by larger worlds, which really works in the favor of Frog Game. The streamlined and quick overworld encounters, instead of having traditional random encounters, really lets you loose to explore, or whatever verb that isn't attack. Can you tell I just played through Earthbound Beginnings? And unlike a certain other game, I generally knew what I was supposed to be doing, and didn't ever need to pull out a guide, which was pretty cool. Just be sure to pay attention to your surroundings, because some mandatory paths can be a bit hidden in plain sight. Now that I think about it, mandatory paths implies the existence of optional paths, which there really aren't many of because of how the game is structured to make you go around just about every inch of the map. Which is cool because the places in said map are pretty fucking rad. The jungle dungeon from about partway through the game is really chill. You're trekking on foliage of trees that stack on top of each other, with water encompassing the bottommost part of the area, seaweed and all. The detail of the grass blowing in the wind is a nice touch, even if it's just a 2-frame animation. Oh yeah, you turn into a frog when going underwater in this game, by the way. Well, not at the start, at least. It's a whole situation with the protagonist looking for a tree to get some joy fruit, then the fruit turns out to be poisonous, knocking him out, him being given a mysterious potion that ends up turning him into a frog, but the very same type of fruit turns him back into a human, specifically because of its properties. So TLDR, the shops sell poison. Damn. I already knew what this place would be like going in because I was messing around the map earlier on and selected some place called Pudding Desert, where the town is located. Oh, that's a pun. Dessert and pudding. Christ, why did I only now just realize that? Wait a minute, most of these places are named after food. Okay, let's move on from that tangent. The western town is cool, even as someone who isn't super big on that type of thing. Sadly, there aren't any firearms as one might expect. But at least you got the one other staple of the Wild West. Bunny girls. I don't know much about the Wild West, so I'm gonna assume this is par for the course. You even get into a bar fight with this one guy when you refuse to get him a drink, and who, according to his wife, hangs out at the bar all day, with ellipses. So interpret that how you will. Oh, and for context, this is how you recruit him and his lackeys so you can go digging in a mine that supposedly has millions worth of gold. It's one of the few times you get party members that will absolutely pulverize any and all enemies, the best trope in any RPG. It's also one of the few times you get to have multiple party members in the game, which is honestly fine for what this game's going for. And at the end of said mine lies not gold, but a sword. Our protagonist pulls out the sword, and immediately gold starts surging in from the incision the sword was kept in. Everyone's gotta make a run for it. But it's not just gold, it's molten gold, meaning when it erupted and made its way into the water outside, it caused the ice around Syrup Lake to melt, and even some parts of the nearby snowy region. Global warming for the win. Speaking of the snowy region, oh, snowy areas and games, I am so biased in your favor. Even with the original Game Boy's limited color palette of 4 grayscale tones, it still comes off distinctly winterish compared to the other areas. It's the little details, you know? Damn, the town here's gotta be one of the coziest areas in the whole game. I mean, look at this. There are silly little snowmen scattered about. They are a bit rudimentary, but I still like them, regardless of life essence. Part of me wishes they could have done something crazy like mimicking the look of snowflakes falling, though I'd imagine the required density of sprites to make that look good would outweigh any presentational benefit, assuming it would be possible to display them all concurrently without flickering. But maybe having flickering snowflake sprites would look alright, especially on the display of the contemporary OG Game Boy with its heavy ghosting artifacts. The only real problem with the snow area in this game is that I don't know what else to discuss. It's as simple as me just really liking it, because of the snow, because of the vibes, because it's chill. Keyword. The icy part towards the most northern part of the map is also neat. Fuck it, I'm not doing this bit again. It's tranquil as hell, what more can I say? Frog Game is good at invoking chill energy. You should be well aware of this by now. There's an area directly north of here that is incredibly alluring, but I need to provide some context first. Early on, you run into a fork in the road that both lead to roadblocks, in this case quite literally being 2 stone blocks that you can currently push, so you head over to the nearby village of Spring Hill where someone says you'll need a special type of glove. Where do you get this glove? From a place called Nintendo Fun Center, on Brown Sugar Island. Oh. Okay. So you set sail towards Brown Sugar Island in this now high-low fantasy action-adventure game that's kind of an RPG. I'll elaborate on that in a bit. This is going to sound really embarrassing, but this entire segment in the game was one of the most captivating gaming experiences I've had all year. Which is saying something because I've played stuff like, I don't know, Super Mario 64? I'm playing many new games. But something like that's more about the gameplay, when in the case of Frog Game, it's about the viscerally places you visit, like Nintendo Fun Center. In other words, cool places are cool. I like a quirky game that gets a little meta for no reason. Be a little self-indulgent. I don't care. Actually, I do care. Please be more self-indulgent in a fun way like this. So, there's this guy in the cafeteria, right? When you order food, he's always complaining about how poor your taste is. Except when you get sushi, the most expensive item on the menu, mind you, then he starts acting more friendly, asking you some questions. Sure? I guess? You gotta talk to this guy in just the right manner, and then he'll formally introduce himself as the head of Nintendo R&D. He'll tell you to get some wasabi for him, which happens to be located in... Oh hey, it's that one jungle dungeon I talked about earlier. Otherwise, you gotta keep coughing up that change for sushi. It's annoying, but mild enough of an inconvenience that it ends up being really funny and memorable, like all games of this nature should aspire to be. This game is so fucking stupid. I love it dearly. Frog Game, my beloved. Honestly, I have no clue if that guy's based on a real employee from Nintendo at the time. It's probably just some fictitious company guy inspired by the general vibes of the workplace. Probably. There's definitely more I could talk about, but I think I'll cut it here, so I don't end up spoiling literally every last thing this game has to offer. Because at the end of the day, The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls is just a little Game Boy game, It's not some outstanding subversive hidden gem akin to the Earthbounds or the Undertales. It's just a really fun experience, and a pretty charming one at that. It only took me a little over 7 hours to beat, which to me felt like just the right length for this kind of thing. Likewise, its areas are short and sweet, lasting long enough to leave an impression, but not dragging on to the point where it stops being enjoyable, which I'd personally say is the gold standard for chill video game places, though you do end up revisiting areas throughout the story, but I feel that serves their placeness more than anything else. Essentially, this game is an absolute must-play if you like Game Boy stuff. No, really, please play this game. This is a call to action. Find the ROM from your authorized frog seller and download the English translation patch. At least one of those things is free. And just to clarify for the JRPG dislikers out there, the JRPG mechanics at play are highly streamlined to the point of the game basically just being an action-adventure type thing. So you got no excuse, fellas. There's also less inventory management than Link's Awakening, if that counts for something. But most importantly of all, it's a Christmas game. The game takes place in winter. One of the soldiers inside Eclair Palace mentions the prospect of a Christmas bonus for abducting the a la mode townsfolk, and there's even a snow area. It's a Christmas game. Happy holidays! Damn it, now I want an a la mode. That shit looks so good, I swear to God. Okay, that's not actually the end. I still got a little more to say on this topic, so just because I feel like it, let's do a quick lightning round of other cool games of chill worlds that I chose not to go in depth on for a multitude of reasons, including the fact that footage of low resolution and color games take up less space than ones that are not that. Also because those games tend to be where my tastes lie, as you can tell. Half-Life 2. I've personally always loved the spot in the canals of the buildings visible through the collapsed ceiling. Sometimes it's nice to take a break from the action and just loiter around the spot. There are some other chill spots in this game, but as I said, footage of this nature takes up a lot of space, and I don't have much storage, so... Deltarune. Hometown hits all the right Undertale spots with its open-ended exploration, which is in fact so open-ended, you don't even need to explore and can go straight home. If you don't talk to every character at least twice, are you even human? I would have loved to talk about this more, but sadly, unfinished game moment. And speaking of Toho Dolgen games, Undertale 2! Okay, I'll be honest, I really just wanted to bring up Undertale 2. It's a certified cult classic. And lastly, the Yakuza series as a whole? I actually haven't played any of the games, but some of those places seem pretty chill. You can even play old Sega games in the arcade, which is absolutely sick as hell. Though Sega, please re-release Sonic the Fighters on modern platforms instead of shoving it into another game. I will single-handedly make a standalone release turn a profit. Trust me. There's definitely something to be said about game worlds that go beyond the fundamental purpose of engaging you in a gameplay loop, as I've proven. There are more facets to how enjoyable a game is than just the core gameplay. After all, games are kind of an intersecting point between various mediums, so the ways in which they converge will inherently impact your experience. I gotta admit though, I do feel kind of embarrassed with how subjective I've been during this. I prefer to mix in more objective analysis over being like, oh, this place is cool. It's too easy to fall back on descriptors that really don't mean much other than, I enjoyed this. How could I put into words the very specific emotions places like Link's Awakening's Koholint Island or Earthbound Beginning's Snowman make me feel? Well, I guess Centric could do. I think nostalgia plays a part in why I resonate with these places so much, but ultimately it probably comes down to a mix of life experiences, one's own biases, etc. I'm not a psychologist, just winging it here. And you know what? Maybe that's fine. I don't know. Point is, even a game with a core that isn't all that enjoyable can be elevated by insignificant things like how cozy its environments are, and or the presence of some pleasant background music, because games are simply like that. And I think that's pretty neat. Also, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, that game is fucking full of shit like that. I literally used a song from the game earlier on, like a minute ago. Like 5 seconds ago, actually. I probably should have talked about that game too. Not gonna lie.